anything for either of us? All right, we'll just keep the hits coming then. What's that? That song has been canceled. I'm very sorry. I don't know that. I know it. Smoky Mountain memories about my home in Tennessee. Yesterday keeps calling me home. Mountains rising in my soul, higher than the dreams I know. Misty eyed they cling to me, my Smoky Mountain memory. An old gray man with a dog asleep at his feet plays a worn and fiddle for melodies. He smiles with his eyes, but the lines on his face trouble me as much as the tunes he plays. Smoky Mountain memories, pretty girls in Tennessee. I was such a fool to leave her all alone. Think about her in my dreams, wonder if she thinks of me. I'll always hold her close to me in my Smoky Mountain memory. So far from home, but nothing left to hold on to. I made some plans, but they built room. Now there's nothing left for me but my Smoky Mountain memory. Smoky Mountain memories about my home in Tennessee. Yesterday keeps calling me home. Mountains rising in my soul, higher than the dreams I know. Misty eyes they cling to me, my Smoky Mountain memory. Misty eyes they cling to me, my Smoky Mountain memory. We're going to start telling our life histories if you don't ask a good question. Oh, okay. That answers both questions. I am from just south of San Francisco a little bit. Been in Nashville since '92. Lived in Nashville.
I'm from East Tennessee, Johnson City, Tennessee.
Yeah. That's right, Johnson City, Tennessee. It is. Do what now?
What band have you played?
Well, oops. When I first moved to Nashville, I had a great gig with the Lynn Morris band, right? You know Lynn Morris? And I played with her for, I guess, less than a year. And then Blue Highway started, and I was with that band for 21 years, and that was a great gig. And then Trey and I have been playing for 10 years, so yeah. How about you, Trey?
I've never been in any real bands, like other than my own band and this duo. That's the only things I've ever done, and I don't think I've ever. I had like a little 3-piece rock and roll band when I was in high school, but that sucked. And didn't last, you know.
It was a great band name, though. I love Driving Us Crazy.
That's the only thing we had going for us.
All right. Well, I will give you a little history lesson about the dobro because I think it's cool, and you all know what this is, right? This is called a dobro, but it's also called a steel guitar, Hawaiian guitar. And this style of playing, like in my left hand, I've got a slide, and so this comes from Hawaii. And in the 1880s, there was a young man, Joseph Kikiku. Legend has it that he was sitting in class one day and he had his guitar in his lap, and he's combing his hair, and he dropped his comb, and it slid across the strings, and he went, "Whoa, I like that, that's cool." And he went to metal shop and he built a metal slide and started playing a guitar flat like this. And so it comes from Hawaii. And these Hawaiian musicians were like rock stars. They played all over the world, were a big influence, obviously, on country and bluegrass music. You wouldn't have the lap steel or the pedal steel guitar if it weren't for this. And when I say dobro, to me that means like a wood body guitar with a metal resonator. And it's also a brand name. So the first company that built these was the Dobro Company. Dobro, and it's crazy history because it's Hawaiian, but these three guys who invented it were living in Los Angeles, but they were from Slovakia. Makes perfect sense, right? So dobro actually means good in Slovak. So if you're ever in Eastern Europe, you will see dobro vodka, dobro beer, dobro this, dobro that. And also, another fun fact, the Cafiero brothers are the guys who invented this in the 20s. And so, Cafiero, brothers, dobro. So it kind of lined up on several ways. Yeah, so this type of guitar was invented in 1927, so coming up on 100 years. And I think it's the coolest instrument on the planet. Anybody else think it's the coolest instrument? Okay, very good. All right. Well, you guys want to hear something else? This is not a workshop. This is a concert. I was misled. Yeah. Do what now? Oh yeah. Okay, so this workshop is called Bluegrass Licks. So I don't know. I don't like to think of it in terms of licks, honestly, because it's kind of a dead-end street. But yeah, I mean, we all learn them. Like there's a great Josh Graves lick. He was the guy who brought the dobro to bluegrass music, and he was a blues man. And he had this great lick. I love the rhythm of that. So, any key you're at, just go up 3 frets on those top 2 strings. So yeah, the blues works great on a dobro because you have the slide and there's no frets and it just kind of fits that emotional intensity. You got a good guitar lick you want to show?
Yeah, it all comes back to the G run on the guitar. We were talking about that at a thing earlier this week, just about the evolution of the G run, how it started with. I'm sure there were people playing it before, but in bluegrass context, it started with people like Lester Flatt who played with a thumb pick and a finger pick. So it'd be at the end of it'd kind of be like a punctuation point at the end of a sentence. So, there's a well-beaten path on this old mountainside where I wandered when I was a lad, where I wandered alone to the place I called home, and those Blue Ridge hills far away. And it started, it was just simply that. 4th string, 2nd fret, open 3rd string. It's since evolved drastically to, that's the Tony Rice way to do it, it's a little quicker. There's a lot lot more, like in bluegrass guitar, there's so much rhythm, syncopation stuff that happens. That's kind of because of people like Brother Maybelle Carter that played all the famous Carter family stuff, and then it got brought into bluegrass with flat pick players, people like Clarence White, Tony Rice. But you know, there's again, like Rob was mentioning, the blues. You know, you wouldn't have bluegrass without the blues. So many blues licks that get brought in. A lot of the, you know, like pentatonic stuff. So a lot of times though, I'll work on just a G run in several different spots, which is just and kind of keep it going as a whole piece. You know, if you're breaking it down just to little pieces, and you're figuring out the fretboard that way, it all kind of, like the way I sort of conceptualize the fretboard is in more of a caged type system. So you're thinking about it in chord shapes. You've got if you're playing a G, you've got your standard G, your F shape of G, your C shape of G. Like you had a capo on the 7th fret and you played out of C, like all that classic flat and Scruggs stuff that Earl Scruggs played the guitar on, like You Are My Flower. He had a capo and was playing it up there that high. But you can play it without a capo. It's the same stuff. So I'm thinking about a lot of things as chord shapes whenever especially improvisation, it's all kind of based around chord shapes. So it's important to learn your chord shapes, and just, if you're just working on it in small bite-sized pieces, so if it's just G, C, and D, you're just working on. You're just working on G, C, and D. That's all that is. If you're doing it real slow. So now when I'm thinking of a song, like if I'm talking about a standard like bluegrass thing, like Blackberry Blossom. I'm playing it slow, you can sort of see the chord shapes go by, you know. So there's about 20 licks. Y'all have any more questions while we're talking? This is a Taylor guitar. It's kind of a new model. It's called a Gold Label 517, and it's braced a little differently than a normal Taylor. It's got, I think, a lot more body and bottom end.
Probably can't hear it.
It's pretty loud and punchy and boomy, and I really like. I've played plugged in most of the time, and so I use LR Bag's Anthem SL pickup, which sounds, to me, it sounds very natural and sounds like my guitar. I can put it in different guitars and it changes changes the way it sounds. I've always hated like undersaddle pickups when it changes the tonality of the guitar and it just makes it sound like a quacking duck. Is usually the way it sounds, that really high, and they call that quack because it's a very mid-rangey sound, and I think that sort of gets rid of it. And I've got a bunch of pedals that do a bunch of dumb stuff that nobody ever needs, like that's your classic bluegrass tone. Hear that on all the Bill Monroe records. That's none of the dumb stuff, but yeah, you get the point.
So he's saying, what's the tuning on the dobro? It's an open G chord, so from the low string it's G, B, D, G, B, D. So 2 octaves, and this was, I just found out recently, this was the original Hawaiian tuning when they started playing this style. So yeah, it's similar to a banjo. My older brother is a banjo player, so we grew up playing together, and I always, a lot of those licks work on the dobro, you know. So kind of that rolling thing, there's a lot we can learn from the banjo for sure. But yeah, open G typically. Yeah.
How often do you tilt the slide to get certain, chords?
Yeah. So the question is, how often do you tilt the slide to get different chords? And we call them slants, because typically the bar is laid straight across the fret. But you can turn the bar and get different harmonies. And so how often just depends, but it's a great technique. I've always done it, but I've tried to sort of get better at it in the last few years because I like the harmonic options. It kind of opens up the fretboard and makes playing easier in some ways. I tell people playing dobro is like playing guitar with one finger on your left hand, So anything that sort of increases the math, the possibilities is helpful. So you can just do it a while. Just to go, like I'm going from to F without having to go all the way to the 10th fret. So that's all F stuff. So yeah, it's a great technique. It's difficult just to get the intonation, but I've learned that it's not just hitting the frets, but giving a little vibrato really helps. You can see the bar rocking back and forth a little bit. So yeah, this kind of opens up the harmonic options in a good way. Yeah. Another question? Yeah, in the back. Yeah.
You say, I heard you say Clarence Watt. Sorry, this fan's really loud.
Yeah, can you come a little closer? This fan is really loud. Oh yeah.
He's asking about Clarence Watt, who was one of the greats on the Mount Rushmore of bluegrass guitar players for sure. And he had a very, if you're familiar with his style, and he also played electric guitar. Was one of the great electric guitar players ever played. Yeah, played beat bender guitar. Had the very first beat bender guitar. And he played with the Byrds. I guess in the late '60s, from Sweethearts of the Rodeo. He played on some of that record on out. And but he had when he played bluegrass guitar, a very unique style where he played a lot of cross picking stuff, which is just kind of three, classified sort of as like three notes played in a row with your right hand. So I always think of cross picking in two different camps. If you get really in the weeds with bluegrass, you've got everything pre-Clarence White with Stanley Brothers, where you had stuff like. And with your right hand, when you play the pick, you're playing downstroke, downstroke, upstroke. A lot of that stuff after Clarence came in, it's still a lot of down, down, up stuff, but there's a lot of alternate picking that goes along with it too. Tony Rice sort of took it and made it his own thing as well. People like David Greer are out there still kind of doing a lot of that very syncopated Clarence White stuff. But there's a particular song I about. I haven't played it in a long time, but I'll try
That was good. Love your part anyway. I remember. Was that on that Blue album?
I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember.
Sorry, just like
it. Somebody said yes. We're gonna go with that.
the Blue album.
Blue album by Weezer.
I don't even get that joke. they didn't play with Flat Scruggs or Tony Rice, I have no idea who they are.
Anybody have any questions? It was called Listen to the Mockingbird. I have no idea. Probably to the mockingbirds there are. There are. Somebody says there are words. We'll get you up singing next time. Any other questions? We might pick something else. If not. Yeah, he was talking about the Clarence White thing. I mean, you hear it very prominently in everything post Clarence White. I always think of it, if you hear a good Tony Rice song, that sort of showcases that. There's a syncopated rhythm thing that Tony does in that, where instead of playing boom chugga boom chugga boom chugga boom chugga, which would get pretty tedious after 4 minutes, he goes, where he's just playing. If you're playing a C chord, you're just playing 6, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3, 2, which is a good exercise if you're practicing alternate picking. Downstroke, upstroke, downstroke. Even though during the solo, if you really watch Tony, he's playing a lot of almost sweep picking stuff, which is we were talking about Clarence White. But when you talk about the rhythm, so yeah, good thing to practice. Yep.
So, Christian,
Gee, that was a big flat. Where's your brain going?
My brain was going red alert, red alert. No, he's asking, so that song was in E flat, and you're tuned to open G. How did you navigate that? So the nice thing about an open chord is that, yeah, you just move it up G, G sharp, A, B flat, B. Eventually you get to E flat at the 8th fret. But yeah, I mean, it's all the same. I think it helps to sort of do some scales, you know, on the dobro or any instrument. Kind of, oh, okay, I see, this shape works. So, you know. So that's in C, and you just take that same shape and move it up 3 frets. So just learning a couple simple scales, you know, can kind of pull things together visually or like intellectually. But it's nice to know, you know, what notes make up the scale. So like E flat sounds scary, but you actually have a G in that chord because the G is the 3rd. So I'm always looking for open strings. They're your friend, you know, on the dobro. And you also have a D, which is in the scale. So I could do. And there's a nice major 7 chord, you know, with the open D. So, you know, it helps to know a little bit of brain stuff, you know, like what notes are in the scale and where they are on the fretboard. That's helpful for sure. So, yeah, so it wasn't too tough for me. Yeah. Good question. Another question? Yeah, great. So he's asking, do I use any alternate tunings? I don't typically. On a session, I often take 2 guitars, and one of them I'll use for tuning low, but I'll tune the same tuning just down to F sharp or F or E. If I want that, those open strings really is kind of what guides me. I need more, and I love just tuning the whole thing down because it gets a little raunchier, the strings flop around, and it's great for a blues kind of thing. It has a little more funk to it in a good way, you know. And so that is something I'll do, but when I'm on stage, boy, I just don't want to retune. And I also feel like this tuning has everything I need. It's just a matter of me finding it, you know. And one thing that helps with that is just at some point I figured out that major is minor and minor is major. So like I'm tuned to open G. But those are the same notes that are in an E minor 7 chord. So E minor is the relative minor. So like if Trey plays an E minor chord, hear it meshing. So I'm playing G stuff over an E minor and it works great. So that helps, you know. So if it's an E minor chord, I might just play a G chord, or if it's an A minor chord, I might play a C chord and let it kind of mesh. Let everybody else play the full chord and I'll play a piece of it. Yeah. Great. Another question? Yeah, in the back up.
When you're playing it and you're sliding all the strings, are you using commuting to make sure the other strings aren't playing?
Yeah, great question. So he's asking, you know, do you lay the bar across all the strings all the time, or am I muting with my right hand? What's going on? I do a lot of the muting with the left hand, and I think the key to that is not putting the bar across all the strings. And so I do this thing I call it a tilt. So that I'm using like when you play guitar, you know, you don't go like this. You don't lay you use the tips of your fingers when you're playing lead. And so I think of it like that. I'm using the tip of my bar. And the cool thing is when you tilt the bar, all the other notes are muted. Here they're. So even if I hit a wrong note, it's going to be dead. And if the bar is across all the strings, it gets noisy pretty quick. see the bar, you see me rocking the bar, that's and I notice when I go to the low string, I tilt the bar back the other way because I'm trying to get the front edge of the bar off the other strings. So yeah, that's how I do most of my blocking. I do mute with the picks, like so after I pick it, I'll come back and mute it with the pick. Whatever is available is what you use, yeah. It is one of the challenging parts of the instrument is, playing it clean because you got metal strings, metal bar. Yeah, that's good. That's what you want right there. So I think I've always been, the guy who inspired me to play was Mike Aldridge, and he was such a clean player that he was a big influence on me playing clean and kind of the importance of it, And same with listening to Tony Rice, even though it's a different instrument, I was always inspired by how pure that tone was, and his playing ability. So yeah, most of it with my left hand, I'd say. Good question. Yeah.
Guitar influences outside of bluegrass are pretty vast. I mean, I listen to a lot of different things. Everything from like rock and roll guitar players, from Eddie Van Halen, Jimmy Page, kind of the classic, up into like metal stuff. I got way into metal at a certain point. Some people like Marty Friedman. And then blues was a big influence. You sort of put the dots together when you start listening to a lot of, kind of classic blues stuff that, this is where bluegrass sort of came from. And so, everything from, Mississippi John Hurt, a lot of the, you hear stuff like that in Doc Watson's playing, and he even did that song, but you hear, he would do. There's all that blues influence, even with Merle Travis, which was two finger style, which is a totally different world, but if you're listening to. You hear all that stuff even in Bill Monroe. That's all like blues licks, So if you listen to, everything early, like Robert Johnson stuff, that was a big influence. Even though I don't really play that style that often. And then, got into people like, Dwayne Allman and Dickie Betts and that world and Jerry Garcia and it's the list is miles and miles long, but then I got way into Wes Montgomery and all that jazz stuff, and so I think the big takeaway from it is to keep listening. I always loved when I saw Tony Rice for the very first time. I was 11, and he played Big Country, which is a Jimmy Martin song. He wasn't singing at the time. This would have been like 2001, and then he played my favorite things. And he played like a 14-minute version of it. And I remember he got done with the first two songs. He said, the first song was a Jimmy Martin number, and then the second one was John Coltrane's song. And I made a mental note, okay, John Coltrane. And I went, at the time, Best Buy was where I went to go buy a John Coltrane CD. And I was like, hey, you have any John Coltrane? And they looked, there's this one record. Miles Davis Kind of Blue. I think it was celebrating like the 50th anniversary that year. And I bought that record and I hated it. There was no guitar on it anywhere. I was like, where's Tony getting all these guitar licks? And but then I, got way into that. But it was a good lesson in that, Tony Rice and all these people that I'd been listening to were listening to other things and other players and other instruments, and just soaking up as much as they can. I think you can't be sort of a well-rounded musician without listening to everything or having big ears and being able to find things in different musics and different genres and different styles that kind of get you excited.
Yeah, I want to second that and kind of brag on this guy a little bit. When we first started playing together, I was really impressed with the lack of Tony Rice licks, that I heard. I didn't hear one. I think we were playing for 6 months before I heard him play one. And then I realized he knew the whole catalog of Tony's stuff. It's kind of been overdone. I mean, we all love Tony, and he's a big guy in our universe, but a lot of guitar players go down that road and they think, good, okay, I've learned the guitar, I've learned a few Tony Rice breaks, I'm good, done, mission accomplished, and there's, especially on the guitar, there's like so many great players to listen to, and that's one of the things I love about working with Trey is every night I hear Jimmy Martin, I hear Jerry Garcia, I hear Shredders, I hear so many influences, and I think that's a great lesson, it's great to focus on some players, but boy, it's a big world out there, and don't stop at the first exit. Stay on the highway, keep going. All right, well, we probably got time for one more, and thank you, everybody. Appreciate you coming out. It's great to be here at the Folk Festival. Great sight. I'll do you one. This is a dobro instrumental. I mentioned Josh Graves earlier. He really brought the blues to the instrument. Before him, everybody was playing. Real pretty. And then So anyway, this is the blues he wrote, named it after Lester Flatt, called Flat Lonesome.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. We are playing at 6 until Wednesday, so thank you so much.
Success.
Bill, hey ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our Culture Tent program.